I don't know exactly what happened with the stream and trying it again with the phone not in the case and the AC in my car running a bit more. Anyways, what I was saying before I got cut off is really the aim would be to go through the necessary steps to then build enough chi so that it becomes so thick that its effects are so clear that you kind of know what's going on, and it becomes something you actually have and you can do something with, and you can absorb into to a certain extent. Now that is obviously not a quick or necessarily easy process by any stretch of the imagination, but that's ultimately the solution and what actually brings results and bears fruits. And I guess one thing that I should clarify for the more sensitive types and people on the that might be listening to this is everything that I'm saying that might seem critical or mean, it's not actually. It's just because this endeavor is so difficult. Genuinely one of, if not the most difficult things a person can do. So it's not like anyone should be like, oh, I made this mistake, so I must be dumb or bad or less than. No, it's welcome to being a human. This is what pretty much everyone has to go through because this is a really difficult endeavor. And there's quite a few ways to get it wrong. There's a lot of near enemies. And then the path to actually getting it a little closer to correct is a bit more difficult. Or maybe, again, maybe I'm just an idiot and everyone I've ever studied with and met that's skilled is also an idiot, and everyone on the internet is just gifted geniuses, which is often what it seems like. People are like, "Oh, you had to do all this work and all this time and energy to do this." Oh, I did that like 10 years ago. I sat for meditation for 3 minutes and I had all that stuff going. Like, I don't get what's so hard about it. Anyways, I just wanted to clarify that because meaning if there's anything that anyone can do or say or hear that might, like I said from the start, save them a lot of time, a lot of energy, a lot of wasted effort, then I think it could be useful. And I think it's useful with anything that we're doing. If our interest and our intention is actually to improve at that thing and develop skill at that thing, then we actually have to self reflect and correct our own errors, which is predicated on being able to actually recognize them. That's with any skill. It doesn't really matter what it is. If you want to learn to be good at piano, you wouldn't just sit down at a piano and say, "Oh, I'm really good at piano. Why?" "Oh, because I took ayahuasca." "Really?" "Yeah, and then a couple weeks ago I went to a meditation class. I sat down and closed my eyes and it felt like there was ants on my skin, and now I'm like a concert level pianist." It's like cool, but those don't have any, there's no connection there. Or it's like I can play the most difficult arrangements of Franz Liszt or Chopin, etc., Tchaikovsky. Really, can you? Yeah, I swam in the ocean a couple weeks ago, and so now I can do this. It's like, well, those processes don't, those actions you took and experiences you had don't lead to those outcomes. Play the thing on the piano. Oh no, I don't do that. I can't do that. No, it's not really a thing. It's like, well, wait, you just said you did. Yeah, but that's because this is my experience, this is my feelings, and who are you to judge? And you're such a mean, harsh, critical, judgmental, angry person. Who hurt you? Why would you say that? If I say I can play Chopin and Tchaikovsky and Franz Liszt at a high level, then that's my experience. That's my feelings. It's like cool. Yeah, it's your free right as a human being, but like the music is the music. Uh, it's just funny having to explain these things that honestly I feel like lower my IQ, even having to entertain that kind of logic, but that's only because so many people actually legitimately think in that way, especially in this arena. Because, like I said, we're dealing with the human mind, we're dealing with the human condition, and people fundamentally function under value, power, and safety. So people are getting to these endeavors usually because they feel deficient in one or three of those three things, and they want to remedy it by some endeavor. And that's mostly what they're doing the vast majority of the time, which is fine. I fully respect and can and support whatever anyone wants to do. My only thing is that it has nothing to do with what the classics or the tradition or the actual teachers. It has nothing to do with actually developing proficiency or skill. That's pretty much it. And people might hear what I'm saying and think, oh, that's crazy. Go on any forum, any message board, any discussion group, go to any workshop within any of these internal arts sorts of things, and I absolutely guarantee you will hear so many variations of the exact conversation and the exact dynamics that I've described in this video that I've described numerous times over. People think I'm being mean. I'm not. I'm just saying this has all that stuff has nothing to do with actually developing skill. It's just subjective feelings, emotions, experiences, and mental abstraction, which again is something else and something different. What is actually useful and beneficial and is a correct marker is things like I said before, profoundly changing who we are as a person to like a really strong degree. Not like, oh, well, I liked drum and bass, but now I like trip hop. So I've changed a lot. Or I used to like apples, but now I like pears. Okay, yeah, that's not really what was. We're talking about something a little bit more profound here. Um, like I said, these things arise as side effects and side uh, processes to the actual practicing the stuff. It's not like I'm doing this because I want this to happen and I'm waiting it for it to happen. That's not really how it works. And like I said, it the useful piece is actually putting all the preconditions and stuff in place to actually developing the substance of chi. So then it's thick enough that it affects us at a very strong way that is not subtle, that's not subjective, that's not feeling or emotion or intellectually based, and it's almost undeniable. That's much more useful because then you know, then it's clear, or clearer, I should say, more knowable, because there's still obviously plenty of room for delusion because sensitivity is not necessarily useful and is not necessarily a virtue. I say that, and I'm sure it's ruffling, could ruffle some feathers because for some people that's like a badge of armor they wear. Like, oh, I can't even go outside. I can't even go to the mall. I can't even drive on the highway anymore. It's just so crazy and chaotic. I just have to sit at home. I can only be in nature. I have to retire from the world. I can't deal with all these people. I can only eat these three foods. I can't eat all this other stuff. I can't go out to a restaurant. I can't do all these things. I'm like, yeah, that's not a virtue. That sounds really. I mean, I've been there. My nervous system has been that messed up that I had to live that way, and I can tell you, it wasn't. It wasn't something I would wish on someone, and it's not something I would brag about, and it's not something I would say is like means something good. It means something bad. It means we need to sort some things out. But again, you go into these arenas, you're going to hear people bragging about their sensitivity. Why do I say this? Why is it relevant to what I'm talking about here? Because someone who might be really high strung or really neurotic or really hyper stimulated might do a thing, some sort of practice, and they might feel something crazy, huge, massive, but it might be massive to them, but in actuality, it's nothing. On the flip side, you might have someone who's very dense, not very sensitive whatsoever. They might actually feel something massive, but they're not sensitive. So to them, it's like very minor. It's like, oh yeah, I felt something, something, but they're like not really phased by it. But it might actually be huge versus the person who's like tripping balls and like freaking out and had this experience that they're going to talk about for months or years on end. It might just be like the profundity of like one of my beard hairs, but because they're so sensitive, it feels huge. Versus another person, they might get hit with like a they got hit in the head with a basketball. Someone threw a basketball at them, hit them, but because they're not sensitive, they're like, oh yeah, yeah, okay, yeah, it was all right, yeah, whatever. So it's like there's like a beard hair and then something actually substantial, but the which you could say getting hit in the head by a basketball might have more of an impact on you than if I threw a beard hair at you. But again, because of a person's sensitivity, one is going to be the other. Um, so that's one of the reasons why they're like, yeah, sensitivity, don't worry about it. Feelings, sensations, ignore them because you don't really know until a certain point when things are thick enough that you kind of know a little bit more. Like if something is a is if something has genuinely reshaped your entire skeleton, the way you walk, the way you move, the way you get up and down, the way your physiology exists throughout your life, then you're like, oh yeah, something probably happened. I probably did something because the way I feel and the way I move in every arena is different. It's stronger, it's more vital, it's healthier, it's more fluid, it's more integrated. Fill in the blank. So then you can say, oh yeah, versus oh, ooh, I felt this twitch. Oh, I felt the tingle. Oh, I felt this. Cool. And I farted. Okay. And like doesn't really mean anything. Or you could say, oh, I went on a super amazing diet and it completely transformed the way I feel and the way I look and the way my body functions. Oh, okay. That means something. That's a little more tangible and realistic. So, what I'm saying is, you'd want to get something a little closer to that is what's actually useful, beneficial, and is an actual metric or marker for whatever it is that we're doing or may not be doing. And again, that's not easy. That's not quick. It's a difficult process fraught with a lot of errors and a lot of potholes and a lot of dead end cul-de-sacs because it's difficult and because we're human and we like to be human and do whatever it is that we do, which is kind of funny. So, anyways, hopefully that makes sense. Hopefully that's useful. And hopefully that sheds some light to where I'm actually coming from and what my point of reference is for speaking about these things. Because transforming someone on that level is very different than what the vast majority of people are doing. Because if we actually want to change or transform or cultivate or grow or develop, that's that's a separate thing than just chasing feelings and sensations. I think if someone firstly if they're an adult and they're just chasing emotions and feelings, I'd say that's maybe not the most adult behavior to begin with. Secondly, they're probably just better off doing drugs or partying or listening to music or doing ecstatic dance and whatever else, because those are going to give you way more feelings and sensations and way more pleasurable. But it's not actually going to change much of anything. It's probably just could be fun for sure, and enjoyable and party and give people feel good emotions and have a sense of connection and community and maybe some hedonism and these types of things. But those are all again distinct, separate, different things which have nothing to do with all the stuff that I tried to describe. So, anyways, hopefully that's been helpful and useful. I just mention it because this is a really, really big stumbling block for a lot of people, and for understandably so, because it's frustrating for so long in the beginning to where you're like flying blind within all this stuff, and you don't really know what you're doing because you don't necessarily have a clear feedback mechanism or enough experience or whatever. Um, so it's understandable. And and yeah, feelings can be entertaining and fun. So of course, it's a very natural thing that our mind wants to get glued into. But the last thing that I'll say is that one of the reasons why that's problematic is because it's oftentimes just reinforcing the pre-existing patterning, which again is the opposite of change, because it's just more of the same. So you just get better at that. For example, people that do get really into emotional release and healing their inner child and all this kind of thing, right? They just get better at that. They train their system to be more hypersensitive and emotional, and that's it. And of course, the catharsis can be beneficial and therapeutic for certain people in certain instances, of course, but that's a separate thing. And if we're doing it chronically over time, it's just building that feedback loop into our system, which is, I think, just common sense. It's like if I went to the gym and lifted weights, it's building that feedback loop into my system. So I should hopefully get more efficient at lifting weights, unless something's really wrong or I'm really unhealthy, or running or swimming or anything, or eating junk or eating healthy or laying on the couch all day. Whatever it is, our bodies will adapt and get very efficient at doing that. Which is also one of the other reasons why people literally cannot do anything internal or quote unquote spiritual, is because they don't have the body for it. They don't have the system for it. They have a body or a system for everything that they've already done in their lives, myself included. This is what I'm talking about, a process of change and transformation to actually become the thing capable of doing the thing. It's like if I spend 8 hours a day in a chair, my body is good at spending 8 hours a day in a chair. If I'm spending 8 hours a day in a chair and another 4 or 5 hours on the couch, and I'm angry at society, and I'm angry at social media, and I'm angry at all these people, uh, then then a person would just get better at doing those things, and their actual experience of life would get much smaller and smaller and smaller. But that's just normal. That's just normal life. And fill in the blank with whatever example of their experiences. That's normal life. That's not cultivation. That's not training. That's not anything other than normal life. I just say that because people are like, oh, well, it's all the same and it's all one and there's no separation and you're already there and you're already the thing and you're already perfect. Or you have to release your trauma. You have to do all like no, it's those are all different things, which is why they're called different things, which is why they're used different words, because different words refer to different definitions, which is why they're different, which is crazy concept. Like, I just really wonder how, firstly, smart modern people really think they are, and secondly, how dumb they really think these so-called wise ancients are. Because at every instance that I've seen, the common thing is for most people to be like, "Oh no, no, I know better. Oh no, no, what they really meant was this. Oh no, no, they just didn't have science, so they didn't understand." Or, "Oh, that's just a metaphor. Oh, this is an allegory. Oh, that's just thing." It's like, wait, so then what are you doing? So then what's the point of all this? It's like when people say, "Oh, I've spent 20 years healing my trauma." But it's something I just have to live with, and it's just something that's always going to be there. But I've done so much work. It's like, have you? What? I mean, maybe things have gotten better, or maybe you just would have been better off just enjoying your life and like doing other things than all that drudgery and minutia and just things that I hear people describe. It just sounds so miserable. Um, like uh, someone I was talking to the other day was like, "Oh well, you know, some people think we have 16 personalities." And the key is to just integrate and balance all of them. I was like, dude, that sounds horrible. That sounds really unpleasant. That sounds like, why would anyone want to do that? That sounds so unpleasant and unenjoyable and just monotonous drudgery. Why would you sign up for that? But that's the same thing as like, oh, I gotta heal my shadow, I gotta integrate my shadow, I gotta do all these things. It's like, that sounds miserable. Like, if there was a way to drain all of your energy and suck the life out of yourself, I think that would be one of the easiest ways to do it. Like, oh, everything you're doing is just because of a trauma, just because of something, someone hurt you or did this to you in your shadow, and you have to do this, and you got to dig through all this stuff and process and cry and release and integrate and repeat and analyze and accept and harmonize, like just this whole, dude, that just doesn't sound pleasant in any way, shape, or form. Anyways, I'm off the plot at this point. I'm just rambling. Um, yeah. Andrew S. says, can I ask what you think of Damo Mitchell? I signed up for his foundation course of Nagong. It's going to cost around $10,000, including travel and housing. Thanks. I'm assuming you're going to go to Bali. Um, I'm assuming that's what that means, considering the healthy expenditure of fundage. But if you wanted to send me an email or a private message, I'd be happy to discuss that in more detail. I've talked about it in a lot of other videos, but if you want to, like I said, send me a message. I'll be happy to dive into that with you in much more detail and obviously learn more about where you're coming from as a person and what your goals are to actually give some informed opinion whether or not $10,000 will be a productive expenditure. But good question. And also maybe go back and rewatch everything from these live streams because it's very relevant to that exact subject matter. But anyways, I've been sitting in the Target parking lot for way too long and did not mean to be live streaming to this extent. So anyways, thanks to everyone that tuned in or not, and thanks for the questions. Um, and yeah, I'll see you on the next one, and enjoy your day, night, afternoon, evening, wherever you are.